What if the fear that has quietly ruled your life was never your enemy at all, but the raw, unshaped energy of your greatest fortune, waiting for a mind disciplined enough to command it, waiting for a soul strong enough to convert trembling into vision and doubt into destiny? And if that were true, then what would you dare to desire right now if you knew that every fear inside you was only a misunderstood signal pointing toward the exact life you were meant to live? Because the Stoics whispered that fear is nothing more than a judgment, and Napoleon Hill revealed that every judgment is a thought, and every thought repeated becomes a belief, and every belief pressed deep into the subconscious becomes a law that governs the body, the will, and the world around you. So before you move one more step through this invisible architecture of cause and effect, ask yourself in the deepest chamber of your awareness whether you have been obeying your fear as if it were fate, or whether you are finally ready to command it as if it were a tool, because this moment right now is the place where the two philosophies meet, where stoic calm locks hands with burning ambition, where the silent discipline of the ancients merges with the metaphysical science of success. And in this place there is no room for trembling hearts or scattered minds, only for those who have decided that the inner world will no longer be a battlefield but a throne room. You were never designed to live at the mercy of your emotions, and you were never meant to let circumstances dictate the size of your dreams. Yet most people do exactly that without realizing it, drifting through their days like leaves in a storm, pulled by every impulse, frightened by every uncertainty, enslaved by every passing thought, and they call this living. But the Stoics would have called it madness, and Napoleon Hill would have called it failure of definite purpose. Because when you have no firm command over your own mind, the world commands you, and when the world commands you, it always demands a price, often in the currency of your peace, your power, and your potential. And so you wake up one day wondering how years slipped away while you were busy being afraid of rejection, afraid of loss, afraid of failure, afraid of success, afraid of standing out, afraid of being alone, afraid of being seen. And every one of those fears is nothing more than an untrained thought left to grow wild inside the subconscious, like an invasive vine choking the architecture of your destiny. The Stoics taught that we are not disturbed by events, but by the opinions we form about them. And Napoleon Hill taught that the subconscious mind does not think, it obeys. And when you allow fearful opinions to repeat themselves, they sink into the subconscious and become commands, silent orders that shape your behavior, your posture, your voice, your decisions, and eventually your income, your relationships, and your entire reality. Because a fearful mind will always create a small life, not because the world is small, but because the lens through which it sees is narrow. And this is why so many people feel trapped even when no one is holding them, because the prison was built inside first, brick by brick, thought by thought, fear by fear. Yet here is the forbidden truth that almost no one is taught. Fear is not a force of destruction, it is a force of potential. It is the same raw energy that fuels courage, and the difference between the coward and the conqueror is not that one feels fear and the other does not. It is that one allows fear to command the mind, while the other commands fear through the mind. And this is where Stoicism and Napoleon Hill converge into a single ruthless philosophy of self-mastery. Because Stoicism gives you the power to detach from emotional turbulence, to observe fear without becoming it, while Napoleon Hill gives you the power to reprogram the subconscious with desire so intense that it burns through doubt like fire through paper. When you truly understand this, you realize that fear is simply energy without direction, and desire is energy with a destination, and the Stoic mind learns to sit calmly inside that energy without flinching, while the visionary mind gives it a target so precise that the subconscious has no choice but to move toward it. And this is how fortunes are built, not from luck, not from chance, but from a mind that refuses to be ruled by invisible forces. Look at your own life and be honest in the silence between your thoughts. How many opportunities did you not take because fear spoke louder than desire? How many versions of yourself died quietly because doubt whispered that you were not ready, not worthy, not capable? And yet the Stoics would have told you that those whispers were just impressions, no, truths, and Napoleon Hill would have told you that impressions only become truths when you accept them. And so the tragedy of most lives is not that people fail, it is that they accept failure as an identity, as if a single outcome had the authority to define an entire existence. The Stoic does not argue with fear, he observes it, and in that observation it loses its power, because what you can observe you are no longer trapped inside, and Napoleon Hill would add that once you step outside a fearful thought, you gain the ability to replace it, to impress a new image onto the subconscious. And when you do that with enough repetition and emotional intensity, it becomes your new reality. Because the mind is a mirror that reflects whatever you hold before it long enough. And most people hold up their fears and then wonder why their lives look so small. This is why self-mastery is the true source of wealth, not money, not property, not status, because all of those are just shadows cast by the state of your mind, and a mind that cannot command itself will never command the world, while a mind that can sit in stillness in the face of chaos and yet hold a vision so vivid it feels like destiny, will bend circumstances in ways that look like magic to those who do not understand the law, but are simply physics to those who do. Napoleon Hill called it the power of the subconscious, the ability to plant a desire so deeply that it organizes your thoughts, your habits, and your actions around its fulfillment, while the Stoics called it living according to reason. The refusal to be dragged around by impulses and emotions like a slave, and when you combine these two, you get something terrifyingly powerful. A human being who can feel fear without obeying it, and can hold desire without being consumed by it. A being who moves through the world with the calm of a monk and the hunger of a conqueror. This is not the mindset of the masses, and it never will be, because most people would rather be comfortable than powerful, rather be distracted than disciplined, rather be entertained than enlightened. But comfort is a slow death, and distraction is a quiet betrayal of your own potential. And entertainment is a drug that keeps you asleep while life passes you by. And so the Stoic Hill mindset is not for those who want to feel good. It is for those who want to become great. Every time you choose to face a fear instead of run from it, you are not just being brave, you are reprogramming your subconscious. You are teaching it that you are the authority, not the emotion. And every time you hold your vision in your mind despite uncertainty, you are sending a signal to the deeper layers of your psyche that this future is real, that it is not a fantasy but a destination. And the subconscious does not know the difference between imagination and experience. It only knows repetition and emotional charge. And so when you combine Stoic emotional discipline with Hill's visionary intensity, you create a mental environment where fear cannot survive because it is constantly being overwritten by purpose. You begin to understand that the world outside is only a projection of the world within, that markets, relationships, opportunities, and even luck itself seem to bend toward those who carry themselves with unshakable inner order. And this is why some people walk into a room, the air seems to shift, because they are not seeking approval, they are not broadcasting need, they are not leaking fear. They are anchored in a calm certainty that says, I know who I am, I know where I am going, and nothing you do can change that. And the subconscious minds of others feel this and respond to it, because certainty is magnetic and fear is repellent. This is how fortunes are built in silence long before they are built in the world. And this is why the Stoics meditated on death, while Napoleon Hill told you to meditate on your dreams, because both are ways of stripping away illusion. One by reminding you how little time you have, the other by reminding you how much you can become. And when you hold both in your mind, you move with a ferocity that is calm, with a hunger that is disciplined. with a drive that is not desperate but deliberate. Imagine what your life would look like if fear no longer made your decisions, if rejection no longer defined your worth, if uncertainty no longer paralyzed your action, and if instead you moved through every challenge as a stoic warrior armed with the visionary fire of Napoleon Hill, seeing obstacles not as threats, but as training, not as proof of inadequacy, but as proof that you are on the edge of something greater, because the edge is always where fear lives, and it is also where growth begins. You were never meant to live a small story, but you will if you allow small thoughts to rule your mind. And so this is the moment where you either continue to let fear write your narrative, or you step into the role of author and begin to script a life that is worthy of your deepest desires. Because the Stoics would remind you that you cannot control the world, but you can control your response to it. And Napoleon Hill would remind you that when you control your response, you control your destiny. This is not motivation, it is a law, a quiet, relentless, invisible law that governs every success and every failure, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it, and once you begin to live by it, your life will never feel small again, because fear will no longer be a wall but a doorway, and desire will no longer be a wish but a command, and your mind will no longer be a battlefield but a throne, and from that throne you will begin to rule not just your circumstances, but your very self, which is the greatest empire any human can ever build. There is a quiet war happening inside you right now, a war between the part of you that trembles at the thought of failure and the part of you that knows, deep in the marrow of your bones, that you are capable of more than you have ever dared to claim. The Stoics called this war the struggle between reason and impulse, between the logos within and the chaotic commands of the passions, while Napoleon Hill called it the battle between desire and doubt, between a burning definiteness of purpose and the incessant whispers of impossibility. And it is here, in this hidden battlefield of consciousness, that fortunes are won long before they appear in the ledger, because the mind that masters itself has the power to bend events to its vision. Fear may roar, uncertainty may claw at your edges, but the disciplined mind, the mind that practices both calm and fire, does not flinch. It observes the tremor of doubt and the pulse of anxiety as if they were passing clouds, neither chasing them nor resisting them. And in that observation, a new power is born. The power of emotional detachment married to unshakable desire. Consider the people you see around you who appear confident, successful, almost untouchable. Do you think they have never felt the icy grip of fear, the paralysis of indecision, the sting of rejection? No, they have. What separates them is not immunity to fear, but mastery over it. They have trained their minds like an artisan sharpens a blade, honing attention, focus, and self-command until fear bends instead of breaks. The Stoics remind us that a man is not harmed by events, only by his judgment of them, and Napoleon Hill reminds us that the subconscious mind is obedient. It acts upon the impressions it receives, molding your behavior, habits, and results in perfect alignment with those impressions. If your judgments are fearful and your impressions timid, your world will mirror that, reflecting limitations and scarcity. If your judgments are resolute and your impressions unwavering, the subconscious will marshal every latent force within you to fulfill the vision you dare to hold. Every human mind is like a fertile field. What you plant, it will grow. If you plant fear, hesitation, doubt, scarcity, it will harvest struggle. If you plant purpose, clarity, audacity, and disciplined desire, it will harvest wealth, influence, and freedom. Yet the field is dark, and most people are asleep while they sow their seeds. They do not know the invisible laws that govern their inner landscape, and so they wander, wandering from job to job, relationship to relationship, trying to fill emptiness with distraction, mistaking temporary pleasure for power. The Stoics knew that external things are fleeting, that life itself is indifferent to your wishes, and Napoleon Hill knew that your mind is the only constant, the only soil where greatness can be cultivated. Together, These truths demand a single conclusion. If you cannot master your mind, you cannot master life. Desire without discipline is delusion. Fear without observation is destruction. And yet, when desire is harnessed with the relentless rigor of the Stoic mind, it becomes unstoppable. Picture it, a mind that sees fear, understands its source, and does not yield, while simultaneously nurturing a vision so vivid, so compelling, that the subconscious begins to bend reality toward it. This is the alchemy of the inner world. The external world may attempt to resist, to block, to threaten, but it is powerless against a mind that has learned to move with unshakable calm and unrelenting focus. Success is not a question of chance. It is the inevitable outcome of mastery over thought, over emotion, over the invisible currents that pull most humans like drifting leaves. Think of desire as fire. Left uncontrolled, it burns indiscriminately, consuming everything in its path. Left untended, it may flicker out before it ignites anything real. But guided with discipline, tempered with observation, it becomes a forge, shaping every action, every decision, every habit into instruments of achievement. This is why the Stoics meditated on the ephemeral nature of life, on the inevitability of death, on the impermanence of circumstance, while Hill instructed us to meditate on the end result, on the outcome we desire so deeply that it eclipses all distractions. One trains the mind to detach from fear and emotional turbulence. The other trains it to attach to purpose with sacred intensity. Together, they transform ordinary humans into architects of reality, turning every limitation into an opportunity, every obstacle into a lesson, every fear into a tool. You must understand the subtle mechanics of this transformation. Your subconscious cannot differentiate between what is imagined vividly and what is experienced tangibly. It responds to intensity and clarity, to repetition and emotional charge. If you fill it with doubt, it obeys doubt. If you fill it with vision, it obeys vision. Yet it also obeys the mind that observes, that disciplines, that refuses to be hijacked by momentary impulses. The Stoics teach that reason must govern emotion. Hill teaches that desire must govern thought. When reason and desire align, when the calm eye of observation guides the fire of intent, the subconscious becomes a willing servant, moving all your energies toward the life you are willing to claim. It is not enough to simply wish. Wishing is weak, ephemeral, a ghost of action. It is not enough to simply act. Action without vision is chaos, aimless motion. You must marry the two, a vision so real it haunts you, a discipline so firm it restrains you. This is the crucible in which extraordinary lives are forged. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind screaming, the abyss yawning below, your fear roaring like a lion, yet your mind anchored in the certainty of your purpose. That tension, that dark, terrifying edge is where transformation happens. Most people step back, surrendering to fear. The Stoic Hill mind steps forward, feeling the tremor, hearing the roar, but never obeying it blindly. Every step is calculated, deliberate, infused with vision. Every step is a testament. I am the master of myself. I am the commander of my destiny. Look closely at desire, and you will see its dual nature. It can be enslaving, binding you to fantasy, blinding you to reality. It can also be liberating, directing your subconscious with precision, transforming obstacles into stepping stones, resistance into momentum. The difference lies in discipline. The Stoics remind you that external events are neither good nor evil, they are neutral. They only gain weight when you assign it. Hill reminds you that the subconscious acts on the images and emotions impressed upon it. Merge these two and you have a formula for fearless creation. Do not assign fear weight, assign desire and purpose. Let the emotional fire feed the subconscious, while reason holds the reins. Let vision be absolute while the world is indifferent. Most people are content to live in the shallows, to paddle through life without ever feeling the tension between fear and ambition, between restraint and expression. But that tension is where genius is born. That tension is the forge of mastery. That tension is where the Stoic mind observes without flinching while the hill mind drives forward relentlessly. That is where you will find yourself when you begin to take control of your subconscious. When you begin to recognize every fear as a signal, every obstacle as a guide, every hesitation as an invitation to sharpen your focus. The world will not yield easily. It will resist, mock, and challenge you at every turn. And yet every resistance is a mirror, reflecting your readiness, your strength, your capacity to act. Mastery begins with observation, and observation begins with silence. Learn to sit in the dark of your mind, to watch thoughts as they arise and dissipate, to feel the pulse of fear without surrendering to it. Let it roll across your consciousness like waves across a rock. Notice them, but do not let them erode your foundation. This is the practice of the Stoics, the quiet training that builds an invincible inner citadel. Then feed that fortress with vision, with desire, with clarity of purpose. Hill called this definiteness of purpose. Stoicism calls it reasoned action. Together, they form the mental architecture of those who rise above circumstance, who move through fear with dignity, and who command wealth, influence, and achievement without being enslaved by them. The subconscious mind is like molten metal. It will take the shape of the mold you press against it. Will you press the mold of fear, scarcity, and hesitation? Or will you press the mold of certainty, power, and ambition? Most people leave the metal to cool on its own, letting it warp into shapes they did not choose. You must intervene. You must press your mold repeatedly with precision until every habit, every action, every reaction is aligned with the life you intend to live. That is the work of mastery, and that is why fear is not your enemy but your teacher, your crucible, your signal that your desires are real, that your vision is within reach, that you have stepped to the edge where transformation begins. Every thought you allow to linger, every fear you permit to echo, every desire you hold without discipline, these become the invisible forces shaping your life. The E-world itself responds to the mind that has disciplined its internal kingdom. Fortune is not outside, it is the natural result of an internal law obeyed, clarity of desire, control of emotion, persistence of action, and calm observation in the face of uncertainty. This is the Stoic Hill mind, a mind that moves through life like a predator in silence, precise, patient, unstoppable. Do not imagine this as an abstract philosophy. Imagine it in your own life, in the decisions you make daily, in the moments when fear rises, when opportunity knocks, when hesitation whispers. Here, in these ordinary moments, the extraordinary mind reveals itself. Fear will arise, doubt will gnaw, circumstances will resist. Observe, do not obey, desire, focus, vision, press these into the subconscious. Every repetition strengthens the neural pathways. Every calm observation strengthens the citadel. Every disciplined step shapes the reality that will one day appear as fortune. There is no magic here, only law, the law of thought, the law of observation, the law of desire, the law of action. Master these laws internally, and the world cannot resist. Fail to master them, and no external effort, no shortcut, no hack, no fleeting inspiration can produce the life you truly seek. Fear is a teacher, not a jailer. Desire is a weapon, not a whim. Observation is power, not passivity. Action is inevitability, not chaos. Align them, and you move from being a subject of circumstance to a sovereign of existence. The edge of greatness is not in the external world. It is in your own mind. There, fear and desire meet. There, doubt and vision collide. There, hesitation confronts clarity. The Stoic Hill mind does not shrink from this collision. It sits in the eye of it, unmoved yet relentless, calm yet relentless, observing yet creating, and in that alchemy, it becomes unstoppable, untouchable, undeniable. This is the mindset that crushes fear and builds fortune, because it knows that the only real power in life comes from the mastery of self, and that mastery, once achieved, radiates outward, bending the world to the clarity, intensity, and calm of the mind that holds it. Every human being carries within them a silent orchestra of impulses, desires, and fears, playing a chaotic symphony that most call life. The vast majority of people wander through this orchestra, clapping along to whatever tune rises, oblivious to the fact that mastery is not in joining the chaos, but in conducting it. The Stoics teach that we are disturbed not by events, but by our judgments of events. Napoleon Hill teaches that our subconscious obeys the strongest impressions impressed upon it. When these truths collide, the law becomes unavoidable. The mind that commands its own impressions commands destiny itself. Imagine your subconscious as a vast, fertile city. Every thought is a brick, every feeling a street, every fear a shadow. Walk carelessly, and the city decays under neglect. Walk deliberately, and you build a metropolis of power, precision, and purpose, a fortress against the storm of circumstance, a palace where desire and discipline cohabit in unshakable alliance. Fear is the most misunderstood instrument in this city. Most see it as an adversary, a monster to be defeated, a shadow to be feared. But fear is merely unrefined energy, raw and neutral, waiting to be harnessed. It carries with it the pulse of life itself, the pulse of instinct, of urgency, of survival. The Stoic mind does not battle it, it observes it. The Hill mind does not suppress it, it directs it. Fear becomes not a wall, but a bridge, not a chain, but a lever. You begin to see that every moment you felt terror, hesitation, or anxiety, the same moment could have been transformed into action, into clarity, into power, had you held your mind steady, had you impressed your desire upon the subconscious, had you observed without surrendering. Every time you flinch from fear, you give it strength. Every time you remain calm and focused, you take its power and convert it into fuel for your ambition. Desire, too, is misunderstood. Most people mistake desire for longing, for hope, for a vague wish. True desire, as Hill teaches, is not fragile or tentative. It is a burning obsession that commands every facet of the mind, a fire that can never be ignored because it is alive with purpose. But obsession without discipline devours the one who wields it. Discipline without vision is hollow. Here is where the Stoic mind becomes indispensable. Through reasoned detachment, the mind learns to sit with desire without being consumed by it, to channel obsession with precision rather than scatter it recklessly. This is the art of inner alchemy, the marriage of fire and silence, of relentless pursuit and unshakable calm, of ambition and equanimity. The world outside is a mirror of the world inside. Consider a man who trembles at the thought of rejection. He will be rejected constantly, not because the world is cruel, but because his trembling projects weakness. Consider a woman who obsesses over wealth without inner restraint. She will find herself lost in endless opportunity, but unable to capitalize, because obsession without control is chaos. Now imagine a mind that combines the Stoics' calm observation with Hill's burning desire. Such a mind moves like a predator in silence, precise, patient, and inevitable. Fortune does not hide from it. Resistance bends. Obstacles become stepping stones. The laws of success, previously invisible, now operate like a clockwork beneath the surface of life. And every action, every thought, every choice becomes an instrument of creation rather than a response to circumstance. Mastery is born in repetition. The Stoics meditated daily on death, on impermanence, on the futility of externals. ill-instructed daily affirmations, visualization, and emotional engagement with one's ultimate goal. Repetition transforms understanding into muscle, theory into instinct, knowledge into force. Each morning you meet fear and observe it. Each night you rehearse your vision. You are pressing new pathways into your subconscious, carving corridors of power that will guide every thought and action, silently, invisibly, relentlessly. You are not hoping for courage, you are programming it. You are not wishing for clarity, you are instilling it as law. And once these pathways exist, once these corridors are complete, your life begins to change before your body moves, because the machinery of your mind has already set the world in motion on your behalf. There is a peculiar intensity that comes from this inner alignment. Fear no longer roars, it whispers, and even its whisper is powerless. Desire no longer burns destructively, it channels, precise, unavoidable. Action is no longer frantic, it is deliberate, unstoppable, inevitable. You move through life with a dual consciousness, an observer, calm, unshaken, and a creator, burning, relentless. Each moment is both a test and an opportunity, each obstacle both a lesson and a lever, each interaction both a mirror and a mechanism. You are no longer a passenger in your life, you are the engineer, the architect, the commander of every element you once thought beyond control. Most people fear failure more than they desire success, but the Stoic Hill mind inverts this. Failure is neutral. It is only significant in the judgment applied to it. Desire is absolute. It is the only compass that matters. You begin to see that what is often called luck is merely the natural byproduct of a mind aligned with law, the law of thought, the law of emotional control, the law of repeated deliberate action. When you operate in accordance with these laws, what others call coincidence, timing, or fortune is nothing more than the reflection of your inner state. The world is indifferent, your mind is not. Harness it, and the indifferent world bends. Ignore it, and the world crushes you silently, invisibly, without mercy. Patience becomes a weapon in this mindset. Most people rush, acting impulsively to escape discomfort, to gratify short-term desires, to avoid fear. But the disciplined mind moves in silence, accumulating unseen advantages, gathering momentum, observing patterns, measuring outcomes, and striking with precision when the opportunity aligns with vision. This is why the Stoics advised long contemplation, and why Hill emphasized planning and definiteness of purpose. Patience is not weakness, it is strategic power, an expression of control over impulse, emotion, and circumstance. Those who can wait while preparing, who can observe while acting, who can remain calm while burning with purpose, are the ones who crush fear and create lasting fortune. Every fear contains a secret instruction. Every doubt signals an area where mastery must grow. Every obstacle, every critique, every unexpected turn carries the lesson and the leverage that your subconscious can use if you are willing to observe, reflect, and act deliberately. The Stoic does not rail against adversity. He examines it, extracts the lesson, and applies reasoned judgment. The Hillian visionary does not despair at failure. He analyzes it, learns from it, and refines his vision. When these approaches merge, the mind becomes a sculptor of reality, seeing potential in the void, finding leverage in resistance, and converting every challenge into the raw material of wealth, influence, and power. Consider your own habits. Every repetition, every thought pattern, every response to circumstance has been building your reality long before you noticed. Fear has been shaping it silently. Desire has been whispering its influence, mostly untrained and unfocused. Now take control, observe every thought, weigh every impression, direct every desire, repeat with intensity, and integrate discipline. This is no longer theory, it is law. The subtle currents of your subconscious will obey, your actions will follow, your life will transform. The only missing element is consistency. The only unseen barrier is resistance within your own mind. And here is the paradox of mastery. It is not achieved through struggle alone, nor through desire alone, nor through observation alone. It is achieved through the perfect synthesis of all three. Desire gives fuel, observation gives clarity, discipline gives direction. Without one, the others falter. With all three, the mind becomes invincible, impervious to fear, untouchable by distraction, unstoppable in pursuit of its vision. This is the architecture of success that Hill and the Stoics both point toward, disguised in different language, yet converging on the same truth: mastery of self precedes mastery of reality. You are already in the arena of greatness, whether you realize it or not. Every fear you feel, every doubt that gnaws, every desire that burns, every hesitation that lingers, these are the raw materials. The Stoic Hill mind does not wish them away. It observes, refines, directs, and converts. Every shadow of fear becomes a lever. Every pang of desire becomes a command. Every moment of uncertainty becomes a crucible in which your destiny is forged. The world will resist, life will challenge, chaos will roar, but the mind that has learned to combine observation with desire, calm with intensity, patience with action, is already beyond the reach of ordinary defeat. This is the mindset that crushes fear, not through avoidance, not through denial, not through reckless bravado, but through disciplined observation, deliberate impression, and repeated, precise action. This is the mindset that builds fortune not through luck, not through whim, not through circumstance, but through mastery of the invisible currents within the mind itself. You are not limited by events. You are limited only by the strength, clarity, and focus with which you hold your mind. Every great life, every legendary fortune, every extraordinary achievement is the reflection of this internal law. And yet, paradoxically, mastery is also humility. The Stoic Hill mind recognizes that external control is an illusion. Power over others is transient. True power begins and ends within. You cannot control the storm, but you can command your vessel. You cannot dictate chance, but you can dictate your response. You cannot eliminate fear, but you can transform it. You cannot force circumstances to yield, but you can align your mind so completely that the world naturally bends to the order you have already established internally. This is where the mind becomes a fortress, fear becomes fuel, desire becomes law, and fortune becomes inevitable. The mind that conquers fear is not a mind that feels nothing. On the contrary, it feels everything, yet obeys nothing that is unworthy of its attention. Most people mistake the absence of fear for mastery, but true mastery is a quiet command, the ability to observe, to understand, to integrate, and then to act without being hijacked by the tremor of panic or the lure of distraction. The Stoics call this apatheia, freedom from irrational passion, and Napoleon Hill calls it the dominion of desire over doubt. When these forces merge, they create a singular, devastatingly effective engine, a mind that can stare into the abyss and see not threat but opportunity, not chaos but material, not despair but instruction. Fear becomes a compass, pointing to the areas where your growth is most necessary, where your ambition is most real, where your destiny waits. The secret few understand is that fear and desire are inseparable in the architecture of power. Desire without fear is fragile. It lacks gravity, lacks the tension that sharpens focus. Fear without desire is paralyzing. It leaves the mind inert, a prisoner of its own imagined threats. But when fear is acknowledged, dissected, and observed, and when desire is sharpened, clarified, and emotionally charged, a new law emerges, the law of deliberate mastery, where energy flows not blindly but with precision. The mind that wields this law becomes a force the world cannot ignore. It sees resistance not as punishment, but as measurement, as a mirror of its own readiness. Obstacles are no longer obstacles, they are instruments, raw materials for the construction of achievement. Every action, every decision, Every thought that has ever seemed insignificant is a thread in the tapestry of your life. Fear, desire, hesitation, discipline, these are not opposing forces, they are the loom upon which the extraordinary is woven. Observe fear without submission, fuel desire without chaos, act with consistency without attachment to outcome, repeat until it becomes instinct. The Stoics remind us that the world itself is indifferent, yet this indifference is not an enemy, it is a canvas. Napoleon Hill teaches that the subconscious mind obeys the strongest impressions impressed upon it, yet those impressions are yours to direct. Together, these truths form the invisible machinery of power, inner clarity commanding outer manifestation. Most people live in a constant state of reactive survival. A minor threat, a harsh word, a temporary discomfort sends their mind spiraling, abandoning purpose for panic. Their subconscious accepts these impressions and weaves them into limitations, habits, and setbacks. Yet you, reading these words, are learning the opposite. You are learning that the mind is a tool, not a victim, that observation is strength, that calmness in the storm is not passive but strategic. This is the essence of the Stoic Hill synthesis: control over perception plus clarity of purpose equals inevitable transformation. Every step taken in awareness, every thought disciplined, every vision held with unyielding intensity is a victory, and these victories accumulate silently, invisibly, until the external world is forced to comply with the inner law already established. Desire, when harnessed properly, becomes a magnetic field. It does not shout, it draws. It does not demand, it commands silently. When your subconscious is impressed with the certainty of what you intend, it mobilizes energy, attention, creativity, and opportunity toward that end. Fear, observed and detached from, becomes the raw kinetic energy to drive your focus. Together, they create a self-reinforcing cycle. Clarity increases focus. Focus reduces fear. Reduced fear allows deeper clarity, and the cycle spins faster until action becomes inevitable, success unavoidable, and your internal world a fortress impervious to distraction or doubt. The process is neither quick nor easy. It demands repetition, patience, and ferocity. It demands long hours of reflection, periods of discomfort, and the conscious alignment of every thought with your highest purpose. You will encounter failure. You will encounter doubt. You will encounter moments when the old patterns, fear, hesitation, indecision, threaten to reclaim their dominion. This is normal. It is essential. The Stoics remind us that the obstacle itself is the path. Napoleon Hill reminds us that persistence in the face of resistance is the secret of all achievement. Every time you overcome a fearful thought, every time you act despite doubt, every time you remain calm while the world rages, you are reinforcing the law that governs both your mind and your reality. Do not confuse this with mere positive thinking. Mere positivity is weak, it is ephemeral. This is the forging of power in the crucible of truth, seeing reality clearly, acknowledging fear and limitation, yet refusing to be enslaved by either. It is visualizing your objective with intensity while remaining unshakable in the face of circumstance. It is feeling desire like fire in your chest while holding the tranquility of a lake in your mind. This duality is uncomfortable, yet it is the defining characteristic of the great, the powerful, the unstoppable. Those who have walked the path of fear to fortune have learned this. Mastery is the tension between observation and action, discipline and obsession, calm and fire. The subconscious mind, once impressed with these dual forces, works tirelessly without fatigue, without complaint, without hesitation. Opportunities present themselves because your perception is tuned to notice them. Decisions become clearer because your mind is no longer cluttered by unnecessary fear. Habits align automatically because your repeated impressions create structure. The external world responds as naturally as gravity responds to mass. The world itself cannot help but yield to a mind aligned in this way. This is why the great fortunes, the legendary successes, the people who seem to operate on a different plane are rarely understood by the masses. They are not lucky. They are disciplined, deliberate, and aligned with laws most cannot see. Do not underestimate the power of repeated small victories. Each disciplined thought, each calm response to fear, each focused effort to impress desire upon your subconscious compounds. The mind is a compounding engine. Just as wealth multiplies with the application of principle, so too does mastery multiply when practiced consistently. Fear loses influence, desire gains authority, action becomes precise, and fortune, once elusive, begins to manifest as an inevitable consequence of internal law obeyed. The tension between fear and desire is, in truth, the lifeblood of power. Those who live without tension, who seek comfort above all, who avoid confrontation with their internal shadows, are doomed to mediocrity. But those who stare into fear, who refine desire, who train the subconscious with patience, repetition, and intensity, become unstoppable. This is why the Stoic Hill mind does not seek comfort. It does not chase approval. It does not wait for external validation. Its allegiance is to law, to clarity, to vision. Every obstacle is converted into leverage, every challenge into a lesson, every failure into fuel. Mastery is habit. Discipline is habit. Observed fear becomes habit. Desired success becomes habit. Fortune in time becomes habit. The mind that learns this rhythm, that internalizes this law, no longer waits for permission, no longer reacts with panic, no longer allows circumstance to define reality. Instead, it creates, shapes, and commands. The external world cannot match the internal order, it can only follow. Every success you see in the world is merely the reflection of internal mastery already established. A law obeyed silently in the shadows before ever appearing in the light. There is an almost sacred intensity to this work. It is not casual, it is not recreational, it is not motivational fluff. It is the deliberate cultivation of internal power, the relentless programming of mind and emotion, the forging of character, vision, and instinct into instruments of creation. Fear is the chisel, desire is the hammer, discipline is the sculptor's hand. The masterpiece is your life, and the laws of mastery, Stoicism and Hill's principles, are the tools. When you begin to operate from this duality, every moment becomes charged. Fear is no longer something to avoid, but something to dissect. Desire is no longer vague, but precise. Action is no longer reactionary, but inevitable. Circumstance may still resist, but resistance is irrelevant. The mind has already moved. The subconscious has already aligned. The law has already been impressed. You are no longer at the mercy of the world. You are the conductor, the architect, the author. The orchestra of your life plays according to your instruction, and every note, every rhythm, every silence is deliberate, exact, and inescapable. The Stoic Hill mind understands that life itself is indifferent. Fortune is neither fair nor cruel. Circumstance is neither friend nor enemy. What matters is mastery of the internal world. What matters is the alignment of desire, fear, and action. What matters is repeated, disciplined engagement with the laws that govern mind and reality. And when this alignment is achieved, fear crumbles, desire sharpens, action accelerates, and once distant, becomes an inevitable reflection of the internal order you have established. There comes a moment, if you are willing to sit with yourself long enough, when the patterns of fear and desire no longer dominate your consciousness, when observation becomes second nature, and deliberate action becomes instinct. This is the edge where the Stoic hill mind thrives, where the ordinary trembles and the extraordinary emerges. It is not a sudden revelation, but a gradual war won quietly, day by day, thought by thought, discipline by discipline. You begin to recognize the whispers of fear before they can escalate into panic. You feel the pull of distraction, but remain anchored in clarity. You sense uncertainty approaching, yet you remain motionless in the storm, poised to act only when alignment is perfect. In this space, mastery is no longer an effort, it is a natural state, the default operating system of your mind. The refinement of desire is the next stage. Most people think that desire is raw and chaotic, like an untamed fire, and indeed, for the untrained, it is. But desire, once disciplined, becomes a vector, a precise instrument pointing to the life you are meant to command. Hill emphasized definiteness of purpose, a clarity so vivid that it leaves no room for hesitation. The Stoics teach that external outcomes are irrelevant, that the only locus of power lies in judgment and action. Together, these principles sculpt desire into a laser. No longer a fleeting whim, it becomes an internal law, a gravity that draws your subconscious, your habits, your decisions, and ultimately your world toward its fulfillment. Desire, without discipline, is a candle in the wind. Discipline without desire is a stone. Together they become the sun, relentless, consistent, impossible to ignore. Every challenge you encounter becomes a measurement of your internal strength. The Stoics remind us that adversity is indifferent. It has no inherent power except that which you grant it. Hill reminds us that persistence in the face of difficulty is the hidden key to all achievement. When you observe a challenge calmly, feel its weight without surrendering to it, and act with intention despite discomfort, you are not merely surviving, you are impressing the law of mastery onto your subconscious. Each victory over hesitation, each moment of deliberate action, is stored invisibly, silently, until it compounds into an unstoppable momentum. This is how the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, not in leaps of luck, but in the quiet accumulation of internal victories, each one small, each one deliberate, each one invisible, until its power manifests externally.
Fear becomes your teacher. Once you stop fleeing it, once you stop reacting to it unconsciously, you begin to decode it.
Fear signals opportunity, challenge, and areas where growth is demanded.
The Stoic mind observes, detaches, and evaluates. The Hillian mind impresses purpose, vision, and repeated intention.
Together, they create a mind that moves with surgical precision through life, aware of every risk, yet unshakable in pursuit of purpose. You begin to act, not because you are fearless, but because you have learned to integrate fear into a higher law, the law of deliberate action. Every hesitation becomes a lever, every doubt becomes a mirror. Every moment of uncertainty becomes a crucible in where your mastery is forged. The accumulation of these internal victories creates a quiet, terrifying confidence. It is not loud or brash. It does not seek validation. It is the calm certainty of a mind that has mastered itself. Circumstances may resist, people may doubt, the world may appear hostile, yet internally you are unassailable. The subconscious has been trained to obey your chosen impressions, habits, choices, and decisions are aligned, desire is vectorized, fear has been repurposed. This is the architecture of inevitability. Fortune does not come to you because the world is generous, it comes because your internal law compels it. It is the natural consequence of alignment, of mastery, of repeated, deliberate internal action. Action in this state is no longer frantic or reactive. It is precise, inevitable, and almost predatory in its timing. You move toward your objectives with the patience of a predator stalking prey, the intensity of fire contained within a steel frame. Every opportunity is evaluated, every risk is calculated, every step is deliberate. Yet this precision does not come from suppression of emotion, but from integration, fear observed, desire disciplined, reasoning applied. Action flows naturally from internal law. You no longer act out of hope or desperation. You act from clarity, alignment, and inevitability. This is the psychological machinery that converts internal mastery into external fortune. Even the passage of time becomes your ally. The Stoics meditated on the brevity of life to cultivate urgency without panic. Hill instructed constant reinforcement of desire to impress the subconscious daily. When these principles converge, time ceases to be a threat. It becomes a medium through which momentum compounds. Small, deliberate actions taken consistently accumulate like interest in a bank, unseen until the balance becomes undeniable. Fear and doubt may linger in the periphery, but their power diminishes as internal alignment strengthens. Every repetition of discipline ingrains patterns into neural circuits, habits, and the very architecture of perception. This is the invisible work, the silent mastery, the hidden accumulation that separates the extraordinary from the ordinary. The mind begins to operate with dual consciousness. It observes and acts simultaneously, like a hawk circling above its prey while striking with deadly precision. Observation allows you to remain unattached to outcomes, detached from transient emotions and undisturbed by the external world's chaos. Action, informed by desire, focused by purpose, and reinforced by repeated subconscious impressions, ensures that every move carries weight. This duality, calm observer and relentless creator, becomes the hallmark of the Stoic Hill mind, the edge that allows ordinary humans to build extraordinary lives. Internal mastery reaches its peak when fear and desire are no longer opposites but allies. Fear highlights what is significant. Desire illuminates what is worth pursuing. One provides the compass, the other provides the energy. The Stoic Hill mind navigates this tension effortlessly. Each fear encountered, each hesitation faced, each resistance overcome is fuel. Each repetition of clarity, each disciplined action, each reaffirmation of purpose is reinforcement. The mind becomes a magnet, the subconscious a locomotive, and the external world an extension of the internal law already obeyed. At this stage, fortune is not chased, it is drawn. Success is not pursued, it manifests inevitably as a reflection of internal alignment. And yet mastery demands humility. The Stoics remind us that external events remain indifferent. Hill reminds us that the subconscious obeys impressions, not wishful thinking. The mind, though powerful, is not omnipotent. You must respect the process, honor the repetition, embrace the discipline. Every failure, every resistance, every moment of discomfort is an opportunity to refine, to strengthen, to impress the law more deeply. Fortune is not a reward for luck. It is a consequence of consistent internal mastery over thought, emotion, and action. The world yields to law, not whim. Your mind is the lawmaker. Your discipline is the force. Your vision is the decree. By the time mastery reaches this stage, your internal law has transformed you irreversibly. The external world cannot resist it. Fortune manifests not as accident, but as inevitability. You act calmly, decisively, and persistently. You observe without flinching, desire without distraction, and move with precision unshakable. Fear is no longer an obstacle, it is a teacher. Desire is no longer vague, it is a vector. Action is no longer reactive, it is inevitable. Every step is the embodiment of internal law, every victory a reflection of disciplined alignment, and every fortune a mirror of mastery. This is the penultimate stage. Only one remains: the transformation into not merely a person of wealth or influence, but into a sovereign of self, a commander of reality, an architect of destiny. The Stoic Hill mind has built the inner citadel. Fear has been repurposed, desire refined, action calibrated, and the subconscious trained as a loyal lieutenant. Now, the external world is simply a reflection, a responsive medium, a place where the inevitable manifests visibly. The next stage is not about learning or practice. It is about execution on the grandest scale, about aligning every element of life with the law already obeyed internally, about converting internal mastery into the apex of external fortune. Now, you stand at the threshold of transformation. The fire of desire burns within you, disciplined and precise. Fear, once a roaring tempest, now whispers at the edges of your awareness, powerless against the fortress of your mind. Every repetition, every calm observation, every deliberate action has carved a citadel in your consciousness, a place where doubt cannot penetrate, where hesitation dissolves, where the laws of success and mastery operate in perfect harmony. This is the culmination of everything you have learned, the apex of the Stoic Hill synthesis, a mind that commands itself, a spirit that refuses compromise, a will that bends circumstance to purpose. And yet, the final step is always the hardest, for it is no longer internal, it is external. It is the manifestation of all that you have honed, the execution of all that you have disciplined. It is the moment where thought becomes reality, where vision takes flesh, where fortune answers to mastery. The Stoics teach that life is indifferent. It does not grant favor or withhold it based on merit. The world will not pause, will not adjust, will not recognize your alignment until you act. Napoleon Hill teaches that the subconscious obeys the images impressed upon it. It moves toward the most compelling vision you can hold with intensity, clarity, and emotional force. You have impressed the law internally. Now the law demands action. This is not casual effort. This is not trial and error. This is the deliberate, inevitable execution of purpose, informed by vision, fortified by discipline, and directed by reason. The moment to act is now, for hesitation is the last ally of fear and the enemy of destiny. Every obstacle you encounter is a reflection of your readiness. Every challenge is a measurement of your preparation. The world will resist, but resistance is meaningless to the mind that has mastered itself. You do not need permission. You do not need approval. You do not need luck. You need only to step forward and act with the inevitability of a law already obeyed internally. Your fear will attempt to roar. Observe it. Your desire will attempt to pull in conflicting directions. Direct it. Your mind will whisper of hesitation. Silence it. You are the architect. You are the commander. You are the force through which reality itself bends. Do not imagine mastery as comfort. It is tension, deliberate, calculated, and enduring. It is the constant negotiation between observation and action, fear and desire, patience and intensity. The Stoic Hill mind does not shrink from this tension. It thrives within it. The mind that can hold this tension without fracture has converted life itself into a crucible of transformation. Every decision, every step, every thought is charged with purpose. Fortune becomes not a question of chance, but a reflection of the alignment, discipline, and clarity within you. You move through the world as a predator moves through its domain, deliberate, silent, observant, and inevitable. The time for delay is over. The moment for subtlety has passed. You have trained, you have observed, you have disciplined, you have impressed your vision on the deepest layers of your mind. Now you act. The world itself will yield, not out of kindness or fairness, but because internal law, repeatedly obeyed, cannot be resisted indefinitely. Fear will attempt to rise. Let it. Desire will demand attention. Focus it. Doubt will whisper of impossibility. Silence it. The mind that has mastered itself moves with unstoppable precision. The life you imagined, the fortune you envisioned, the mastery you practiced internally, all of it begins to manifest now. Remember, this is not casual advice. This is the architecture of transformation. The Stoics remind us that virtue, mastery, and peace come from self-command. Napoleon Hill reminds us that success comes from definiteness of purpose, persistence, and the programming of the subconscious. When these principles converge, the mind becomes a singular instrument of creation. You are no longer passive, you are sovereign. You are no longer reactive, you are deliberate. You are no longer constrained by circumstance, you are aligned with law. Action is not a choice, it is the natural consequence of the inner mastery you have achieved. You will encounter resistance. You will encounter doubt. You will encounter moments where old habits, old fears, old whispers attempt to reclaim dominance. Observe them, detach from them, act despite them. Every step you take is proof that internal law governs your reality. Every deliberate action is a signal to you. Our subconscious. That vision and desire are absolute. Every moment of courage is an engraving in the architecture of inevitability. Fortune is no longer distant. It is the reflection of a mind that has become unassailable, precise, and relentless. Do not waste another instant. The Stoic Hill mind does not linger in hesitation. The laws you have internalized demand expression. Step forward, act with precision, hold your vision with unwavering intensity, observe fear without submission, channel desire without distraction, repeat, persist, persist, persist. Every thought, every action, every moment is a reinforcement of law, a declaration of mastery, a command of reality. The world will respond, for internal mastery cannot remain invisible indefinitely. Your fortune, your influence, your life, all manifest naturally, inevitably, as a reflection of the law already obeyed within. This is the ultimate truth. You are not limited by circumstance. You are not limited by fear. You are not limited by doubt. You are limited only by the clarity, intensity, and discipline with which you hold your mind. The Stoic Hill synthesis has given you the tools. Fear is fuel, desire is vector, observation is power, and deliberate action is law. You are now the sovereign of yourself, the architect of your destiny, the commander of reality. Step forward. Take what has already been prepared within you. Manifest the life, the fortune, the mastery you have already forged internally. Hesitation is death. Action is inevitability. Move now. Transform now. Command now. Your time is here. The fire of desire, the calm of observation, the precision of discipline, the inevitability of repeated action. Fuse these within, and the world bends. Fear will bow. Doubt will retreat. Fortune will answer. You are no longer a passenger. You are the driver. You are no longer a spectator. You are the actor. You are no longer limited. You are sovereign. You are inevitable. Step forward into the life only you can create, for the world itself is already bending to the law that resides within. Step now.